Hey, in this video I will introduce you to the Uniform Packaging and Labeling Regulation, or UPLR. Right, so start by looking into, what the UPLR is, basic definition, then we move to product scope, label contents, placement, and finally product-specific requirements. Okay, let's begin with the basics then. The purpose of the UPLR is to essentially provide information about the product and the seller and the quantity to consumers and also to businesses, so they can make proper comparisons. And the labeling requirements more specifically cover three main components, and that's a product identity. That could be the product name and place of the business, and that could be company name and address of, say, the manufacturer, packer, distributor, and I also believe they cover importers. And finally, and perhaps the most important component, is that of the net quantity of the content, that's weight or other units. Go more into detail about that, because as said, that can be a bit more tricky when it comes to the UPLR. And something that's also interesting about the UPLR is that it's not on a federal level. Instead, the UPLR is published by NIST, or the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and they publish a handbook each year. I think the latest one was released very recently in January of 2023, and this is recorded in February 2023. And my understanding is that they publish an updated version of this handbook every year. It doesn't mean that they are changing the UPLR requirements in that sense, but this is freely available on the NIST website. And I think if you're selling anything in the US, you should definitely make sure that you are staying up to date with the UPLR by downloading the latest version of the NIST handbook. And just for the record, this video is based on the 2022 edition, as you can see here. So some references can be perhaps a bit outdated. Now, in any case, let's look at the scope. So the regulation applies to consumer and non-consumer commodities. Again, I mentioned it's both B2C and also B2B. Packaged in advance of wholesale or retail sale. Now, that would be essentially all consumer goods, as far as I understand. And there's also a more extended scope here. Now, in this video, I will focus on consumer products that are sold either online or brick and mortar retail. So let's look at the label contents then. Now, it's not that the UPLR is not that complex. As I said, includes three main components. And first, we have the identity of the commodity. That could be a product name, model number, SKU, the name and place of business of the manufacturer, packer, or distributor. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think they also cover importers here. I'm pretty sure that the importers are not exempt in any way. And finally, you must also declare the net quantity of contents in terms of weight or mass measure. This means that, I said it could be in terms of weight, but it could also be in terms of length or other units, which I will get to in just in a bit. But before that, let's look into the placement. So I'm not gonna go through this section in detail, but in the NIST handbook, you can scroll down to section 8, prominence and placement, consumer packages, page 72, at least in the 2022 edition. Could be something different now, just so you know. But you will find detailed information about everything from the print location, the location on the package, the specific placement, to fonts, color contrast, free area, quantity declaration, and minimum height of numbers and letters. So they do provide quite detailed information about this, but it should of course be easy to read. It should be, prominently placed. It shouldn't be hidden anywhere. It should be easy for consumers to pick up the packaging and compare it to other products. That's essentially what the UPLR is all about. Now let's move on to product-specific requirements. Yet again, I'm not going to read through these requirements one by one. Instead, I'm here to make you aware of, well, the overall requirements. But go to section 10 and you will find requirements, specific consumer commodities, non-consumer commodities, packages and containers. And this is where you can find information about, well, specific requirements for certain products. For example, apparel, other textiles, packaged seed if you happen to sell that, but also something they call variety packages or multi-unit packages, when you are combining different products or sets of products. So they do provide guidance which is very valuable under section 10. Now, product-specific requirements are usually it comes down to differences or exemptions concerning the declaration of quantity. As you can see here, for wearing apparel, the declaration of identity and responsibility, product name and the company remains the same. But when it comes to declaration of quantity, there is an exemption in place. Meanwhile, when it comes to sewing threads and yarns, well, yet again, they don't specify any differences when it comes to the product identity or that of the company in the declaration of responsibility. But when it comes to the unit that the net quantity must be expressed in, and they clearly specify here that it must be expressed in meters and yards. Now, and is the key word here. It's not meters or yards, it's and. Right. Okay, so that was a brief introduction to the UPLR. My recommendation now is that you go to the NIST website, download the latest version, depending on the year you're watching this. Again, my understanding is that they are releasing a updated version of the NIST handbook on a yearly basis. That doesn't mean that they are changing the UPLR on a yearly basis, but it is not impossible that they will expand exemptions or product-specific requirements, not only adjust them, but also decide to cover more product categories in the future. So you should definitely go to the NIST website and download the handbook where it's freely available. And of course, if you have any questions about this video, you can write a comment here on YouTube or go to our website, compliancegate.com.